It's day number 2 of Vlogmas and it's time to wrap up our reading for November and for West End Reads. Hi everyone, my name is Chloe, welcome back to my channel, thank you for being here today. Today's video is a Vlogmas video. I'm going to be posting a new video every day in December up to and including Christmas Day. It's going to be a mixture of bookish and theatrical content. Today we're sticking with what we know, we are doing a bookish video and it is actually going to be my reading wrap up for the month of November. Although actually, speaking of theatrical elements to a video, November was actually an exciting month because it was the first month of West End Reads and it is all based around musical theatre. So basically there were prompts that were all inspired by various different shows, and in order to go and see that show you had to buy your ticket, which meant that you had to consume some sort of content to do with the show itself, listen to the soundtrack, go and watch the show, whatever you wanted to do, and then you had to read a book that matched the prompt that was to do with the show. I do just want to say a huge thank you to everyone that did take part in that. There's going to be a video coming up in a few days time which is going to go through like some stats and things to do with it and just talk about all the different ways that people were buying their tickets for the shows. But I had a really great time just sort of seeing people get excited about theatre. I actually got to go and see some shows with some of my friends. We had watch-alongs as well. It was nice seeing some people being introduced to new shows. It was just a really good time, and actually it was a really good time for reading as well because I'd been in a slump since like the end of August time and I seem to be back on track. Like November was a good reading month for me. I'm going to go into stats in a minute because that's how I normally start these videos. But yeah, November was good, like both in the amount of books that I read and also the star ratings. I do think I was feeling a little bit generous, but like it was just a good month. It was a good month all round. So let's actually get on to some stats about what I did read in the month of November. So I read a total of 12 books in the month of November, which to put that in context, for September and October I had 6 and 7. So nice jump back up there. 13 is what I normally read in a month. So back on track, which is particularly impressive actually when you think about the fact that for a week in the middle of November, I didn't read very much because I was basically constantly in and out of a theatre. So there was actually like very little reading time within that week, but I still managed to read 12 books. There were some audiobooks and some graphic novels and things like that, but I don't care, reading is reading. I don't care what sort of format or type of book you're reading. It was still the act of reading something in some capacity, so I'm still proud of that. 12 books is good. The number of pages that I read 4,166, which again is about 1,000 more than the 2 previous months, and it means I read on average 138.87 pages per day. As I say every month, I'm aiming to read over 100 pages per day on average for the year. October is the only month that I've fallen underneath that. Like I was above it still on average for the year, but I fell underneath it for the month and it really annoyed me that I did that. So I'm happy that it went back over it for November. And actually year to date I'm at 145.19 pages per day. And again, as I said last month, even if I read nothing in December, which spoiler alert, it's the 1st of December and I've already finished a book, even if I was to read nothing in December, I would still be above 100 pages per day for the year. So I'm doing very well. I'm feeling good about things. The other stat that I more recently started tracking is my average number of pages per book, which was a bit lower this month. It was 347.17, which is still obviously a decent amount, but it is just that I was reading some graphic novels, as I said. Didn't read quite as many like chunky fantasies. Even the other books that I'm reading were like just less pages this month, which is absolutely fine by me because when we get to star ratings later on, you'll see that I had a great time anyway. In terms of the formats that I read this month, this is where it is a little bit different. So I read 1 completely on ebook. That was an ARC that I had, so it was the only way to read it. I had 4 that were completely on audiobook, that's higher than it normally is. Normally it's 1 or 2. 4 that were a mixture of audio and physical, and then 3 that were completely physical. So audiobooks definitely helped. I think it was because I was traveling a lot, so sometimes it wasn't necessarily easy to like carry a book with me or just like get it out when I'm on the train. Or like, sometimes there'd be someone sat next to me and the bag was like hard to reach and I was like, I'm just gonna put my headphones in, it's fine, I can still read now. In terms of age range, we've got a very like straight down the middle split this month. We've got 6 YA and 6 adult. I quite like that, like being half and half. And then for star ratings, we have got 1 3-star, 3 4-star and 8 5-star. Like I said, I was feeling a little bit generous. Some of these are rereads, so like I knew they were going to be 5-star because I was rereading favourites. There's some of us where I've rated them 5 stars, but there's like a difference in that type of rated 5 stars. It'll make sense in a minute. There's basically somewhere the books are different than what I would normally be reading. So, and the way that the star rating is done on those is different because of the type of books they are. There's 2 of them, I will explain that later on. But even then we've got like 6 books that are more similar to what I do normally read that have all got 5 stars. So we're still doing well. So I think that's all the statistics you need to know. So now I'm just going to talk you through what I read and what my thoughts were, and I'm also going to tell you what prompts each of them fulfilled and how I bought my tickets for West End Reads. So I started off the month very strong because I actually read 2 books on the first day of the month. They are both very easy books to read, which is why I managed to read 2 on the first day of the month. I hosted sprints as like kick-off sprints for the readathon, and I was determined to finish something in that first day to like make me feel productive and on it with the readathon. So I picked up a graphic novel for my first read, and it was Demon in the Wood by Leigh Bardugo and Danny Pendergast. So this is a graphic novel that is a prequel to the Shadow and Bone series. It follows the Darkling, but before he became the Darkling, it's kind of like showing you him starting towards that direction. I had a really good time reading this. It's a very, very quick read. The artwork in it is beautiful. Like, I don't know if I can find anything. Like, the picture I want to show you is the very last page, and that will definitely spoil things, but like, it's just pretty artwork. And I find the Darkling a very interesting character. I'm not a person who's like here to sort of make him the romantic love interest. Like, I was never a Darkling and Alina shipper, but I do find him a very interesting character in general. I always find the villain like interesting just to see how they got to that point, and that's said what this was the start of. And I have actually read the short story a while ago that this was based on, because it was based on a short story that Leigh Bardugo wrote and has now been illustrated for a graphic novel. And yeah, there's not too much else to say about this one. I just had a good time. Like I said, it was nice to read more of this character and just get a little bit more information about them. It's definitely something that was designed like for fans of this series. It's not like something that you could sort of read separate to the Shadow and Bone series, but if you are a fan of it, it's definitely worth a read. For the prompts that this fulfilled for me, so I've got my little tickets here. We've got Spring Awakening, which was alternative format. I do not know why I've just had to look at that prompt, because I clearly knew what that was. So alternative format could have been one of the many audiobooks that I read, but I chose to do graphic novel as that instead. And then we have Wicked, which is a villain story, which the Darkling definitely works for that. So for these ones, for Spring Awakening, I just listened to the cast recording. I do it fairly regularly anyway. And then for Wicked, I actually went to go and see Wicked this month, and that was a thing. I wanted to read a book that fulfilled the prompt for every show that I was going to see that had a prompt anyway. There's some shows I went to see that didn't have prompts connected, but if I was going to see it and there was a prompt, I was determined to read something, which you will see later on in the month when I like added an extra book in just because I needed to fulfill a prompt, but we'll get to that later. So at the end of that first day of the month, I wasn't feeling tired when we finished sprints, and I had just got a book that day that I was like, I could probably read this before I go to sleep, because to be honest, it's not really reading it. This is one of the ones where I will tell you now, it's got a 5-star rating. I didn't actually, did I even say Demon in the Wood got a 5-star rating as well? I don't think I said that, but it did. This one got a 5-star rating, but this is one where it's not really rated in the same way as others. It is because it is a Heartstopper yearbook by Alice Oseman. So this isn't a story like the regular Heartstopper books are. This is more of a art book, and it is sort of telling you the story of Heartstopper itself and how sort of the artwork has developed along the years, how Alice Oseman like originally started drawing it, different things that she's sort of done artwork for and put it up online. So there's like a section about Pride artwork that she's done, because she does drawings for that every year, and it just goes through sort of the years of Heartstopper and how the art has developed each year. And I found it really interesting just sort of learning more about how Heartstopper became what it is today, because obviously it did not start off as the sort of hit that it is today, and it was interesting sort of seeing how it developed. And like I said, I gave it 5 stars because it felt weird rating it anything else, because like the artwork is still fantastic. I love these characters. I love sort of just, like I said, hearing a bit more about how it got to that. But like realistically, this is not a 5-star in the way that the other books are 5 stars, but I had a fun time. It took me like half an hour to read it. It was great. For prompts that this fulfilled, we have got Singing in the Rain, which is a sunshine book. Heartstopper obviously makes me very happy. And then we have got Fun Home, which is LGBTQIA+, which, again, very obviously, I've just shown you a Pride section. It definitely fits that. So for Fun Home, again, I listened to the entire cast recording, and for Singing in the Rain, I actually, on the last day of the month, I realised that I'd not listened to something for this, and then I remembered that I went to an exhibition in the middle of the month that was all about theatre, and there was a section where they were playing like clips from loads of different shows, and Singing in the Rain featured very heavily on that. So counting that as me buying my ticket, because I was watching it, I was like, I've actually seen that production on stage, and I would love to go and see it again, even though I only saw it earlier on this year. Singing in the Rain is one of my favourites, by the way. But yeah, going to the, was it Reimagining Musicals exhibition at the V&A, that is what I bought my ticket for for seeing Singing in the Rain and reading the Heartstopper yearbook. We really are on a roll of like really high ratings here, and I know that soon it's going to crash, but for now we're going to carry on with the high ratings, because the next book that I read in the month of November was You Deserve Each Other by Sarah Hogle. So Megan, 12 books a day, has been trying to get me to read this for quite a while. She's been trying to get everyone to read it, to be honest, but she literally bought me this earlier on this year and was like, if I buy it you have to read it, right? And then she also put it on my TBR game, because in March I did a round where my friends picked books for me to read, and she put it on there. So I did tell her, you've sort of ruined it for yourself here, because I can't just pick this up at any point in the year because it is on my TBR game. So, you know, I have to wait for it to come up like that. But also it was Meg's birthday in November. Meg's birthday is on the same day as my birthday, and I did say that if it's not come up before then, I will read it for your birthday. So I picked this one up. It's now been taken out of rotation in the TBR game, and I'm very, very happy that I did. And yes, I am sorry that I waited so long to read it. So this tells the story of Naomi and Nicholas, who are an engaged couple at the beginning of this book, and seemingly they've sort of had this lovely romance. They're now engaged, they're going to get married, they're going to be happily ever after. But unfortunately, they're both not particularly happy in the relationship at the beginning of this book. But neither of them wants to back out of the wedding, because they would then be the ones that have to sort of be responsible and pay for everything that has already been paid for with the wedding. So what they do instead is they decide to kind of annoy each other until the other one calls off the wedding. But also, it is a rom-com, and eventually they are going to end up sort of working their way back to each other. And when I started reading this book, I said to Meg, I was like I can't see how they're going to get to being a happy couple at the end, because like this doesn't seem like just like a minor miscommunication. This seems like two people who legitimately should not be in a relationship with each other at the minute. And I found myself really rooting for this couple, and yeah, just had sort of like a very fun reading experience. The characters were both great, because sometimes in romances you get like sort of one character that you're following who is like fully fleshed out, and then the love interest not so great. This one had a nice balance. I loved both of them, and the humour and the banter in here was great as well. And I just, like I said, had a really good time. I am going to be reading more Sarah Hogle books in the future, and in case you can't tell by how much I'm saying I liked this book, I gave it 5 stars. So good time. Sorry for taking so long to read it, Meg. Oh, and actually for prompts I haven't said, so this fit Be More Chill, which is Friends, because obviously recommended and gifted from Meg, and then it also fit Anastasia, which is a second chance, because it is a second chance romance. And in order to get both those tickets, again, I just listened to the cast recordings for both of those. Had a great time doing it. Next up, we have one that I can't actually hold up because I listened to the audiobook, but this one was a buddy read actually with Meg, Jem and Lisa, and it was I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jennette McCurdy. So again, another one that got a 5-star rating. I'm going to say this now, but like differently rated than some of the others, because this one, okay, so for anyone who doesn't know, it is Jennette McCurdy's memoir, and it is all about her relationship that she had with her mother, and sort of how abusive that was. It's about her growing up as a child actor and various things that sort of went alongside how her mother treated her, and how that sort of affected her body image amongst other things. And it was a very like interesting book to read. It was a very hard book to read as well. And with sort of the 5-star rating, I will say, like, when I was rating this book, obviously I was not rating like the actual story, because like who am I to judge someone's experience. I was rating it as a reading experience and how well crafted this book was, because the actual like way that it was written, and the audiobook as well, because Jennette McCurdy narrated the audiobook herself, and the way that the story was sort of put together and sort of the perspective it had. Because one of the things that we all found like quite difficult with it is that the way that she was telling the stories was as if she was it was almost as if she was living them now. So you were kind of seeing it from her perspective, where she was almost excusing some of the behaviours, and then kind of seeing her like start to realise what had actually happened like as she got older and she got into therapy. And just like the way that that was all crafted was so good. Like a very, very hard book to read. I can't say that I enjoyed the reading experience, but I was very interested and absorbed in it. And like I said, like just a very well done book, I think, is the best way to describe it. I'm going to stop rambling about this one now, because I think it's a hard one to review. This is, as we got further and further on in the buddy read, like we were talking a lot, but we all just kind of like don't know how to say this. But yeah, just lots of thoughts. There were lots and lots of thoughts being passed around at this point. For prompts for this one, let's go on to a slightly happier topic. We have Funny Girl, which is based on a true story. For this one, I listened to the new cast recording because can we talk about the fact that they've done a cast recording of the replacement actress playing Fanny Bryce, but didn't do a cast recording of the actress who originated the role in this new production. It's all very strange, but I was just intrigued to see what the Lea Michele recording sounded like, and I just wanted to hear Amin Karimloo as Nikki Arnstein, because obviously. So I listened to that, had a great time singing around while I was cleaning the house, listening to Funny Girl. And then we have Come From Away, which is set in another country, and I actually went to go and see Come From Away in the middle of November. I went with Meg. So yeah, definitely covered those 2 tickets. Pre-warning, we're going to get to my lowest rated book of the month. I only had 1 3 star and we're about to come to it, and it's very disappointing because this is a 3 star that is a sequel to one of my favourite books that I've read this year. So let's just get it out of the way. I read The Atlas Paradox by Olivia Blake. Now, it wasn't a bad book necessarily. I just felt like there were things that were set up at the end of the first book and like sort of places where characters were left, and it felt like it took a while for, and by a while I mean till the very end, before a lot of that sort of started coming together. It very much felt like a filler book in the middle. I found myself just getting very bored in the middle of it. And the thing is, in the first one I found all of like sort of the academia and things very interesting, and in this one they're all sort of just doing these separate research projects, and I honestly can't tell you what half the research projects were because I definitely zoned out. Like it might be higher on a reread, I might just have not taken enough of it in, but like the fact that it wasn't capturing my attention enough to like allow me to take a lot of it in, I feel like is saying something. And by the end of it, I'm very, very intrigued. Like where this story left off, and like this could be a great finale to this series. But I just, yeah, I don't know if it should have been a duology rather than a trilogy, maybe. I don't know. It didn't quite work for me. So I'm giving it a 3 star right down the middle because, like I said, parts of it I was just very, very bored, but then it redeemed itself by the end. So I'm just going to just go down the middle. I think it's the easiest way to do it. For the prompts that this one fulfilled, so we have Matilda, which is a book about books because the Atlas Six are members of the Alexandrian Society, which is about the Library of Alexandria. So it is a book about books, definitely. And then we have Jesus Christ Superstar, which is betrayal, because to be honest, like, you never know who to trust in this book. They're all going to betray each other at some point, it feels like. For Matilda, I went to see the Matilda musical movie adaptation that came out at the end of this month. I went to see that like the day before the last day of the month, 29th, that's what that is. And then for Jesus Christ Superstar, I went to the Theatre Cafe Diner a couple of times during the month of November, and at one point someone sang I Don't Know How to Love Him. I can't remember which time it was that I went, but there was a song from Jesus Christ Superstar that was sung, so bought my tickets for this one. We're going to go back up in star ratings now, it's fine, we've got past the worst of it. The next book that I read was another one that I can't hold up because it was an e-arc, and I'm going to put it here. It was Never Ever Getting Back Together by Sophie Gonzalez. This is one of my most anticipated reads of the year, and I had a fun time reading it. I've given this one 4 stars. It's about 2 girls who go on a reality show that is basically, all of the contestants are the ex of this guy who is like semi-famous because his sister married a prince in some sort of European country, and they all basically compete to get a second chance to be with him. But the guy that they're competing to sort of be in a relationship with, not that great of a guy. He actually, so the 2 main characters, he cheated on one of them with the other and then kind of set them up to be against each other. But the romance in this book is actually between those 2 characters. So basically it's 2 girls who go on this reality show to compete to be in a relationship with a boy, but then end up falling in love with each other instead. And it was a fun time. The only thing I will say, like the reason why I got a 4 star rather than a 5, I just felt like the relationship between the 2 girls just wasn't quite fleshed out enough. I keep saying the 2 girls because I can't remember the names and I don't have the book here to look it up, and I'm being lazy and I can't bother to look it up on the internet. But anyway, the relationship between the 2 main characters, I just felt like I liked it when they were sort of disliking each other at the beginning, and I liked it when they actually like were together later on, but the bit sort of the lead up to them getting together just felt like it wasn't like quite fleshed out enough. It felt like it happened very quickly. But other than that, I had a great time. It was fun. I liked seeing all like the little challenges that they had to do on the reality show, and obviously it's one of those books that's got like a nice like comeuppance moment for the guy that they don't like. And yeah, I just had a fun time reading it. There's not really much else to say. I wanted it to be a fun time. It was. I really enjoyed Sophie Gonzalez's writing. This is the 4th book I've read from her now. I've read like I've read one that she wrote with someone else and then 3 of her own books, and I've loved all of them. I think I've given them all a 4-star, so had a great time. And for the prompts that this one fulfilled, we have got The Last 5 Years, which is heartbreak, because obviously someone got the heart broken in the first place with the whole cheating thing that went on. And for this one, to buy my ticket, I participated in a watch along for this that I hosted on the Discord for West End Reads, and had a fun time seeing people's reaction to this, because this is one that people watched for the first time, and it was interesting seeing what people's reactions were. And then we also have got Sweeney Todd, The Demon Barber of Fleet Street, which is revenge, because it was a revenge story. One of the girls went on to the competition purely to get revenge on the guy. And for this one, I listened to the cast recording. It was the Michael Ball production from whenever that was. It was in London. It had Imelda Staunton in it as well. I went to see it. But anyway, I listened to that cast recording. Had a great time. I feel like that's one I say every time I listen to a musical. I'm just like, had a great time. It was musicals. Why wouldn't I? The next book that I read was Flashfire by TJ Klune. So this is the sequel to The Extraordinaries. Again, had a great time. That's just kind of like the general phrase for this video, but it's very, very true for this one. In this book, it is a world where there are superheroes. Main character Nicky is a little bit obsessed with superheroes. He writes fan fiction about them, and he's obsessed with sort of one superhero in particular. In the first book, he gets a chance to meet him, and things go from there. I'm not going to tell you too much else, because like I can't tell you this setup of this one because it'll massively spoil something from the first one. But I really enjoyed the first one. I also really enjoyed the second one. I gave it 4 stars. I think I gave the first one 4 stars as well. The reason being, I really, really like TJ Klune's writing. One of the things I love about TJ Klune is that I've read 4 books from him now, and they're like very different vibes. Like you've got Under the Whispering Door and House in the Cerulean Sea, which are like sort of these cute whimsical fantasies, and then you've got this, which is a YA superhero book. Like it's very different in the vibe of it, and his writing style changes quite drastically between them as well. But I've loved his writing style in both of those types of books. The other thing with this one, I found that possibly because it is YA, like it is obviously written younger, which is fine, that's what it's supposed to be, but the main character sometimes was just like a little bit too much for me. It's just like, you're enjoyable, you're funny, but sometimes just stop. But sometimes I just want like a moment of calm, and you didn't always get it. But in general, I really, really enjoyed it. I have actually just bought the 3rd one in this series, so should hopefully be reading that one soon, because I left it quite a while before I picked up Flashfire. I actually had an arc of this before it came out, and I've read it after the 3rd one's come out, so that's kind of telling you how long it's been. But yeah, hopefully I will continue. I think it's finished, I think it's the trilogy, but hopefully I will continue the series soon. For prompts, this one fit The Wizard of Oz, which is heroes, because superheroes, and for that one I listened to a song. I listened to Somewhere Over the Rainbow. And then we have got Bonnie and Clyde, which is a book about crime, because superheroes are fighting crime. And for this one I listened to the entire cast recording at some point. I can't say when, but I know I definitely did, because it's on my general rotation of musicals to get me through the workday. So definitely listen to that one. Next up, we have a reread of one of my favourite books, and it is A Dark Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. So I read this because this is where Schwab-along has got up to, and I've not taken part in any of Schwab-along so far, because basically I didn't want to reread The Neo Witch, and then I was slumping and I wasn't in the mood to read The Archive of the Unbound, even though that is like one of the only V.E. Schwab books that I need to read still, so it's irritating that I haven't read it now, because like seeing everyone else read it and I've still not, it's stressing me out. But I knew that when they got to Dark Shade of Magic, I did very much want to reread them. One, because why would I not want to reread them, but also because the next book that V. Schwab is supposed to be releasing, I believe, is going to be the Threads of Power book, which is the follow-on series to this series. So it's nice to read this again, one, to get excited for that, but also to kind of jog my memory of where we're at, because I'm guessing that Threads of Power should be out sometime next year. Fingers crossed. I know that they're in like the editing stage of it now, so fingers crossed it's coming out next year. This one was an easy 5-star. I say that though, actually the first time I read it I only gave it 4 stars, because I feel like the actual sort of conflict in this is just a little bit too easy. Like it's not the most dramatic, and I think if this was a standalone I would have been like, yeah, I enjoyed it, it was a good time, I liked the writing style, but they could have done a little bit more with the story. It feels like it wraps up at the end of this, so it could leave you feeling like you just wanted that tiny bit more. But sort of knowing that it's a series, although I did know it was a series the first time I read it, but like having read that series now, knowing where it's going, I'm excited for all sort of the things that this is going to lead on to now, so it made me appreciate it more the first time round, because I sort of pick up on things that are going to maybe come back later on, and it just bumped it up that extra star rating. Like having the sort of the hindsight of it made me give it 5 stars instead. So Had a great time. I'm very much looking forward to reading books 2 and 3 because book 2 in particular I absolutely adore. So I'm really looking forward to reading that one in December. For prompts for this one, we've got Rent, which is multi-POV. So this one, it is actually all told from like third person perspective, but there's different chapters that focus on different characters. In this particular book, it's Kel and Lila mainly, but when you get further on, you get more characters introduced as well. So I'm counting it as multi-POV. It's my read for, and I can count it as whatever I want to. And for Rent, I did listen to the cast recording, and also when we went to the Theatre Cafe Diner, the second time I went, when I went with like a bunch of friends, they sang Seasons of Love from Rent while we were there, so that counts. And then the other prompt was Moulin Rouge, which is to reread a favourite, which in order to fill that prompt, I went to go and see Moulin Rouge in the middle of the month, and I went to go and see Jamie Moscato as Christian. And if you want my thoughts on that performance, go watch that vlog, and also like stay tuned for the rest of Vlogmas, because there is one video in particular where I will just go on like a tangent about how much I love Jamie Moscato as an actor. So you've got that to look forward to. Enjoy. I really thought this was going to be a quick video, and then I remembered how much I ramble when I talk about books that I love, and this month I seem to love a lot of books. Speaking of, let's talk about another 5-star. This one is Lore Olympus Volume 3 by Rachel Smythe. So this one is the one that I had to sort of squeeze into my TBR very last minute, because basically I was going to buy this at the beginning of the month because I knew I wanted to read it this month for a particular prompt, and then just completely forgot about it. Then obviously, with it being my birthday in the middle of the month as well, I sort of stopped buying anything that was on my Amazon wish list because I didn't know what people were ordering and things like that. So again, just completely forgot about it. And then I saw it in Waterstones when I went down for my birthday, because Liv was talking about the special edition that Waterstones had. But I went, no, it's fine, I don't need it yet, I'll wait. And then remembered that I needed it for this prompt. So I had to order it on Amazon on like the 28th of the month so that it would come the next day so that I could actually read it. But anyway, I did manage to read it. I gave it 5 stars. I really, really enjoyed it. This is a Hades and Persephone retelling. It is a graphic novel. It's got like just absolutely gorgeous artwork that, again, I'm not going to be able to find anything that's not spoilery, but let me try. But yeah, there's just like really, really pretty artwork in it, and my tickets for this show have just flown across the floor. But again, without going sort of too much into where we are in the story right now, I did really enjoy this one because I felt like the two main characters interacted quite a lot in this. And I mean, it is very slow burn, and I do kind of just want something to happen at this point, but also I am having like a great time reading it. And like, part of me wants more to happen, but also part of me is just like, no, I'm here for it right now. I have no issues. It's fantastic. So I gave this one 5 stars. I've given all of them 5 stars so far. For the prompts, like I said, they did just like fly away from me. So I have one of them, which is actually the one that I needed to fit in. This is Anne Juliet. I went to see Anne Juliet this month, hence why I wanted to definitely fit a book in that filled that prompt. And it is a retelling, and it is a Hades and Persephone retelling. And the prompt that has flown away, and I don't know where it is, I've just tried to find it, was Hadestown, which is mythology, which obviously like you can't get too much closer to the mythology prompt for Hadestown than reading a Hades and Persephone retelling. Although Hadestown is actually more about Orpheus and Eurydice, but like, Hades and Persephone are like obviously a very big part of it as well. If you haven't listened to Hadestown, I think you should. Speaking of, to get those tickets, as I said, Anne Juliet I actually went to go and see. I also did listen to both the West End and the Broadway cast recording. Hadestown I listened to many times this month. Just many times. Okay, that's where we're getting towards the end. I've only got 3 books left to talk about. The next one is a reread, so I'm probably not going to have too much to say about it. It is The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. Like I said, reread, one of my favourite books, one of my favourite series. I love R.F. Kuang as a writer. As you possibly know if you've watched my videos before, Babel is one of my favourite books I've read this year, and I wanted to go back and read the first book that I've loved by this author. Just kind of remind myself of it because it's been a while since I read it, and I had a great time. I did like forget, like I know that this book is like a difficult one to read. I know there's some like heavy topics covered in here, but like the way I would sort of have it in my head is that like you've got this school section of it, and then it goes, and then the war starts, and I felt like they were 2 very different sections, and I forgot that actually no, there's some dark stuff that happens in the school section as well, and like that kind of was like took me back a little bit, and that was a good thing actually. I liked that I was still surprised by this book even though it's a reread, and listened to the audiobook as well, which was a good time because last time I read it as an ebook, so nice to listen to the audiobook and get a different version of taking it in. It was a good audiobook. I will be carrying on with this series, not in December though, but like hopefully in January I'll pick it back up with The Dragon Republic. And yeah, 5-star. It's a 5-star series. I knew it would be. For prompts for this one, we've got Cabaret, which is set during a war. I went to go and see Cabaret this month, part of the reason why I read The Poppy War. And then we have Newsies, which is Found Family. Newsies was the other watch along alongside The Last 5 Years. We did a Jeremy Jordan theme. And also, I'm going to see Newsies 2 days after filming this, 1 day after it goes up on my channel. So I'm very excited for that. But yeah, I listened to this cast recording many times. Watch What Happens from Newsies was my #1 song on Spotify this year, apparently, because I don't put like my Spotify on repeat, because otherwise what happens then is I get distracted and I don't realise it's gone on to repeat. So I always have it so that it just comes up with like a random playlist that it decides to come up with at the end of finishing whatever I'm listening to. And for some reason Spotify has decided that the main song it will play like straight after something finishes is Watch What Happens from Newsies, and that has therefore become my #1 most listened to song this year, because I never turn it off. I'm just like, every time it comes on I'm just like, yeah, I love this song, I'll listen to it. So I've listened to it a lot. So there we go, bought my ticket. Okay, 2 more books. The next one is one that was on my self-destruct video, and I've given myself 3 months extra to read it when I reacted to my self-destruct list in September, and basically if I'd not read it by December I would have to unhaul it. But then it actually came up as a punishment pick for this month because I'd not read my TBR in October, and that book is Viper by Bex Hogan. So this one is one that I had for a while. I think it came as like an extra book in a book subscription box many years ago, and just never read it, like sort of been intrigued by it, heard like decent things about it but not really heard many people talk about it, and for some reason I didn't want to get rid of it but also wasn't like necessarily reaching for it immediately. And I ended up listening to this on audiobook, and I'm actually quite glad that I did read it. Like, I will carry on with the series. So basically it's about this main character whose father is a viper, who isn't like particularly a good guy. Like he runs like a warship and goes around and does some questionable things, and the main character doesn't agree with him. And then basically he ends up doing something that really angers the daughter, so she decides to finally sort of take a stand against him, and it is about, yeah, her fighting against him throughout the book, and also finding out a little bit more about exactly what it is he's been up to and how she kind of fits into what his plans are as well, because that's sort of like the trigger point, is that she finds out that she may be involved in his plans a little bit more than she thought she was, and that's what she's not happy about. And I really enjoy sort of like the setup of this and sort of the world building side of it. And I did also really like that the author isn't like, she's even though it's a YA, she's not sort of holding back. Like, people get killed in this, and at this point it doesn't seem like there's any sort of glossing over of that, like things are miraculously going to get fixed. Like, people die, and because that's what happens when you are fighting a war. And also she doesn't hold back from sort of showing the emotion of that as well, and I like that part of it. My only issue is that the characters, I felt like I wasn't connected to enough to really feel that. Like, I don't feel like I knew the main character enough. Like, I don't feel like she was fleshed out enough for me to like really be feeling for her going through all of this. Like, obviously I was a little bit, but not like quite as connected for it to like really affect me and then bump the star rating up higher as well. So I gave it 4 stars. Stuff like that might get better with the series as it continues. Like I said, I will be carrying on with it. I might just get the audiobook for the next one for now, and then see if I want to buy it physically. But for now, this one's staying on my shelf, so we'll see where it goes. But for prompts, this one actually fit, because it was a punishment pick. Basically, I got 2 of my friends to pick shows for me that I had to fit those prompts for with 1 book, and actually Becca ended up picking this book for me because she was like, this one would fit. And Becca picked the first show, which was 6, which was Royalty, and there is a prince as one of the characters in this one. And then Meg picked Bear, a pop opera, which was underrated. And again, Becca said, well, actually you don't hear many people talk about this one, and Becca really liked it, so she thought it was underrated. And we're like, okay, I'll go with that. To buy my ticket. 6, I've listened to the songs from the cast recording, but also when we went to the Theatre Cafe Diner, we actually requested a song from 6, and they did a performance for us of Get Down, and it was fantastic, and we were all singing along as well. It was a great time, and we also sat in the 6 booth as well while we're there, so covered that one. And then for Bear, a pop opera, I listened to this on the last day of the month, and I messaged Megan. I'm like, I feel like you'll appreciate my choice of musical I'm listening to this morning. And she messaged back, and I'd actually already finished the cast recording at this point. She was like, I do really appreciate it. And then I messaged her back saying, I finished it now and I'm sad because it's not a happy show. Like, it's really not. It's sad. But I did actually appreciate it more on the listen to the cast recording, because my first sort of interaction with that show was to watch a recording that was not a bootleg, definitely not a bootleg, on YouTube alongside Meg. We sort of like messaged while we were watching it at the same time, and I enjoyed it, but also it's like difficult to take in because it's not obviously the best recording. So I did enjoy the songs more listening to them like actually recorded where I can hear the lyrics properly, and I probably will actually listen to it again. So I'm making Meg happy with this video. I've read one of her favourites, and I've said I'll listen to one of her favourite musicals again. Good friend. And then last but by no means least, my last read of the month that I literally finished at like just after midnight on the 30th of November is The Sunbearer Trials by Aidan Thomas. And so, Aidan Thomas, I read Cemetery Boys, absolutely adored it, 5-star book. I read Lost in the Neverwoods and I didn't love it quite so much. I gave it 3 stars. I felt like there was issues with the pacing. I felt like there was issues with the pacing and I just didn't love it. I've said for a while that basically Lost in the Neverwoods was actually Aidan Thomas's debut book, but they decided to publish Cemetery Boys first. And I said, like, I'm hoping that whatever they publish next will like show improvement, and that like that's what's happening, is that sort of Lost in the Neverwoods, then they wrote Cemetery Boys, which writing got better, and hopefully this will be more along the lines of Cemetery Boys. I was proven right, which I'm very happy about. This one was a 5-star read. I very, very much enjoyed this. It is the start of a duology, so I'm excited to see where it goes from here. It's based on Mexican mythology. It's about these semidiosas, which translated is a demigod. And basically within this mythology, every so often they have to have this thing called the Sunbearer Trials, where a bunch of these semidiosas compete to become a sunbearer, which has got a whole backstory to what that actually is, but I'm not going to spoil that for you. That's all within the book. And basically the main character does not expect to get picked for that, because he's sort of lower down in the list of people that you would expect to be picked. Lo and behold, he is picked, and it's basically the competition to become the sunbearer, but there are like consequences if you finish last in the competition as well. So it is all about sort of not necessarily trying to win, but definitely trying to not lose. So, and like I said, I really enjoyed this book. I really liked the characters. I like the romance that is like bubbling up. It's not actually happened yet, but it's got to in the second book, I'm sure of it. We have a trans main character as well, and there's like a particular moment in it that's really sort of like a gender affirming moment for them, and I just like, if I finished reading that bit like at the very end of a sprint, I'm just like, I love this so much. And I came back onto camera and I was like, I love this so much. Like, it was just like the way it was done was so good, and I just had a very good time reading it. And like I said, I'm very, very excited to read the sequel whenever it comes out. I think it is expected to come out next year, so hopefully it won't be too long of a wait. But yeah, happy that I've liked another Aidan Thomas book now. Like, Lost in the Neverwoods was just a blip, back on track with Sunbearer Trials, and I'm very happy about it. And for prompts, I nearly forgot. For these ones, we have got Les Miserables, which is to read an epic. So I know that it's not like the biggest book, but I feel like it is an epic story because it's like about gods and things. Like, if that's not an epic, I don't know what is. Also, like, it is the start of a duology, so when you put them both together, like, it's an epic story. And then we've got Chicago, which is a book with trials, which Sunbearer Trials. So to buy those tickets, I went to see Les Mis in November, an unplanned trip to Les Mis, but I will never say no to going to see Les Miserables. And then Chicago again also came on while I was at the Theatre Cafe Diner, so we covered that one as well. So that is everything that I read in the month of November. I'm going to put that down quickly because it's getting heavy, and there's like more books on here that I don't have physically, so like that would be quite a stack to hold if I was trying to hold them all together. But I had a great time, as you can see, as I have mentioned many times in this video. There were a lot of 5 stars in here, only one that was like lower than a 4-star. It was just a good reading month, and like I said, I had a really good time talking to everyone about musicals as well. And speaking of, there will be more musical content coming your way very shortly. But for now, that is everything. Thank you guys for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff down below. Let me know what your favourite book was that you read in the month of November, and I will see you guys tomorrow with a new video. Bye.